Shivraj has spent the last 10 years leading innovation in the digital domain, helping and advising global businesses and venture-backed startups in crafting digital strategies through analytics. And he's also helped them achieve customer success. And we also have our VP of Sales, Manish Kumar. He's a sales veteran who has been scaling businesses for multiple technology organizations around the globe. Manish has an experience of over 25 years in the software products and solution space. His team believes that he has the power to turn good salespeople into great salespeople. His unmatched strategic leadership skills, sales intuition, and sales expertise has successfully led sales and pre-sales teams to achieve maximized results. So over to you, Shivraj and Manish.
Great. Yeah. So sure, I'll go ahead. And first, I really want to, it's amazing last 3 hours listening to our expert, our distinguished panels and the guest speakers walking us through, the scenario which they see unfolding after the hiatus of last 1 year and all that we have gone through. So, yeah, I think I just want to put a few questions on the table. Maybe we cannot find answer to all of them, but nevertheless, it may be good to know. So if you allow me, I'll just want to share my screen.
Yes, Shivraj, please go ahead.
Okay, so the question which I think we started with the premise is, why do we need to refocus? Yes, the technology has been changing, the process is changing, the environment is changing, and therefore we need to continuously readjust our way of connecting with people, our way of marketing. It's always been changing. And over the last few years, I'll probably say last decade and so, and you've seen what Alok has mentioned, that we built an incredible array of tools and technologies in order to ensure that the marketing can take into its stride as things change. And it has been doing so quite well so far. But why does it need to refocus now? And that's the question which I want to put on the table. So clearly we see a quantum shift. Why? Because when you compress so much of transformation, a digital transformation, and so much of innovation going into just a short time span of 2 months, something may give. And that's what we started to see right now. Cookie, which has been a marketer's best friend so far, has started crumbling. And the cookies goes down, your tracking goes down, your targeting goes down. The information which you have on your profile and persona, that goes down. So how do we adjust? How do we change our focus? How do we change the way of doing things? And that is something which I think is just coming up. You may also be aware that this new technology is coming in. So Google is putting out what they call federated learning of cohorts. So what people like you who are doing, right? And therefore, as a marketer, you may not have access to that laser focus which comes from a cookie tracking, but you may look at a more fuzzy space where you look at what others like you who are doing, and you identify that, and then you start building relationships. Obviously, this whole paradigm of how you target your prospect, how do you personalize, that is going to change, and it's going to change very soon. And then the question arises, how do you find the first start, right? It's with almost 6.5 billion searches happening on Google every day. And when the targeting is just turning very fuzzy, how do you really find the dot which you need to connect? Clearly, as a marketer, you may need to don the hat of Sherlock Holmes. And I think we are seeing some examples here, like David just mentioned. That's the CMO of Sanjaviti, right? he may have started doing all that. Start connecting a dot yourself. Earlier, we used to depend on Google to find the first line of entry, but that's no longer true. So what do we do? I think Larry has been very clear on this point. He was hit the nail over the head when he said that deeply personalized content is going to be the key. So with the moment you talk of content, we start looking at search engine optimization, because if you can't depend on the targeting which you see on the search engine ads, you start looking at organic search. So basically, you see whether the Google can do the heavy lifting for you, not in terms of search engine marketing, but in terms of search engine optimization. And that's where, again, you need content, deeply relevant content. You need more personalized content. You need a variety of content. And end of the day, you build a library. Surprise, this library is going to be highly personalized. So this is not like one size fits all, which also requires you to understand your target more, to really know what they need, what they are, and then create content, use content to drive them in. And I think one of the things Sarah mentioned was quite interesting, is that summits, the virtual events, since you're not meeting face to face, there are no live events. So meeting people virtually is the key. And yes, we can organize events like this where more than 1,000 people join in. But what we have seen, that events across the spectrum, even if you have 10, 15 people in the room, it does matter a lot, because there we can build a more personal one-to-one connection, something which is easier to build, that relationship which persists much longer, much earlier. With so much of data around us, I think there are some other challenges which are on the horizon, which you probably have already seen. Privacy is a big concern, obviously, all around. With the question of privacy comes the rise of data trust. You might ask why. Data, as we say, is the new oil of the economy. So clearly, at some point, somebody will have to hold the fiduciary trust in the data. And that's where these organizations are going to come up. They are going to hold your target segments data, all of it. And then you as a marketer will have to deal with them, will a strike relationship with data trust holders. Now, they may be slightly below the horizon, and but over the last 6 or 8 months, ever since the pandemic hit the world, and put the world to change the way we look at things, the contact tracing apps, and suddenly you see them rising all around, right? And the amount of data, the private data they collect, is humongous. Clearly, it brings in the concern of privacy. And that's where I think we'll see the data trust will start rising in future, very soon in future, and we'll have to work with them. The jury is still out there, whether you want the user to opt in or user to opt out. I think obviously people on both sides of this spectrum have completely different views, whether opt-in works for us, whether opt-in works for definitely the demand is going to be more for opt-in as opposed to opt-out. But what is the fine line between the two? And that is something which, as a marketer, we may have to determine if we want to build something on a scale. The other challenge all around is the walled gardens. And these walled gardens are arising not only because there are regulations in different geographies around the world, and even now we see going to happen in our country as well. But the walled gardens are again created by technology. So if you have Flock, which is going to work on Google Chrome, they know more about it, right? Then they have all the data. But the question is, that data is not being shared with us. So they are creating a walled garden. How do we cross that? How do we navigate through those gardens? That's going to be the challenge coming in. Or just read the mind. And this may sound like a flight of fancy, but I think Facebook out there is building a technology which serves the content which user will like. They sense your brain signals and determine, okay, this content is going to be more appealing to this user. So just go ahead and read the mind. Now, this may seem like a science fiction, but early next year, we might see some of those technologies actually start hitting the market. And then again, it goes back to what our other panelists and speakers have said, that we need to build content, very strong content, very relevant content, and then we need to figure out whom to serve. Now we can we now move some distance away from Menlo Park, and maybe move 140 million miles away. As you can see here, that the rover is beginning its descent on Mars. That was last month. And the look down camera, you can see the haze around, and you can see that the rover is coming down. And as the parachute unfolds, you can see from the looking up camera, and you can see the parachute stripe of red and white, but with a very curious pattern. Usually you see in the parachutes that all the segments are of the same size, alternate colors, same size, same shape, but here these are very different. And what NASA has tried to do is very cleverly, they try to hide a message in this pattern, hoping probably that maybe Martians or the aliens on the Mars might decode the message. But internet being internet, they just took 6 hours to figure out what the message is. And as you can see here, this message is about, let me put a little more context here. To draw the inspiration for this message, NASA actually traveled a century back to 1899, where the country was going through a severe economic depression. And Teddy Roosevelt, the youngest president of the United States, delivered a message saying, "Dare mighty things." And I think that's probably pretty much what defines us today as we step into the post-pandemic world. The challenges which markets are facing, there's not a time to shy away, but maybe dare things which may have seemed difficult, which may have seemed impossible even a year ago. So with this, I hand over mic to Manish to give a summary of the event which happened during the day and propose his vote of thanks. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you, Shivraj. What a day it has been. And I think this conference was all that we had hoped for and much, much more. So on the behalf of the team at the ZT, I'd like to thank all speakers, panelists, and attendees. And specifically one by one, Catherine, for your keynote, amazing insights on the future of digital. We are fortunate to have you and your organization as the incredible partners that you are. And all of us are encouraged with your enthusiasm and the positivity you shared. Great presentation. David, we talk so often, and every occasion is a great learning opportunity. And today was no different. Your own user experience of personalization is a great example. You highlighted the need for brands to determine what makes them special and how they can gain a competitive advantage by mastering the art of personalization. I specifically noted your reference to orchestration, digital engines, and the ideal experience. And of course, Alok, our CEO. Alok, Thank you for being the driving force behind this conference and walking us through the marketing sands of time. I come to the panels. So our panelists, right? The first panel discussion on marketing agility. So Sarah, Heather, and Larry, thank you for your support and taking out the time to be on the panel. I'm really spoiled for choice in terms of takeaways because it was a great discussion. I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm sure so did the audience. Some takeaways. Larry, you spoke about deeply relevant content. So it's a theme that resonated with the other speakers as well. Sarah spoke about network to upskill. This is something that I encourage my team members to do as well. And of course, Heather gave us a unique perspective about giving space to people in these unique and challenging times. Once again, a wonderful panel discussion. Our second discussion on marketing technology and the value it brings. This subject is particularly close to our heart because at Griziti, we are obsessed with technology. So Hala, Corey, and Lincoln, thank you for enlightening us with the importance of a unified MarTech ecosystem. And last but not the least, Heather, Dani, and John, you're all incredible. Your fireside chat on driving your brand with communities, an area where I'm personally engaged with some clients, had just the zing we were hoping for. Once again, a great discussion. And to all our attendees, you guys have been a wonderful audience. So thank you very much for being with us today and making this conference a big success.